Hey everyone, welcome back to Mason Woodshop. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the xTool P2 55-watt CO2 laser. So now this is significantly more powerful than the two diode lasers that I've had in the shop before, notably the xTool S1 20-watt laser with 2-watt IR, as well as the Acrylic Falcon 2 Pro 22-watt laser. And the S1 has been an amazing tool. It's a laser that I am going to be keeping. I'm going to be moving it to the basement, primarily to do metal engraving, which is something that the P2 cannot do. So the 2-watt IR laser on the S1 is going to still be kind of perfect for my needs when it comes to the occasional metal engraving that I do. But where the P2 is going to excel is in supporting some of my woodworking, so specifically sign making, both cutting thicker material with perfect accuracy, as well as cutting and engraving clear acrylic. So those are kind of the two main reasons why I wanted to have the P2 in the shop. Now, you will notice that this is significantly larger than the S1 if you have watched those other videos, and this is even without the riser base. So with the riser base, it's going to jump up another quite a few inches or millimeters. So, but what is cool about this is that it has integrated air assist. It does have the CO2 tube at the back. I will be walking through all of the features throughout this video while I go through the setup, so don't worry about all that right now. But a lot of it is integrated into this single unit. So while there is a bit of setup involved in filling up the CO2 tank, or the tank to support the cooling of the CO2 tube with antifreeze, which is an interesting process, as well as just kind of like getting some other things set up in here. It is a much more contained unit, powerful exhaust, which is super cool. Dual cameras, so it does have a wide angle camera that can see the entire surface, the working surface, which is just under 2 feet by 1 feet, or 600 millimeters by 300 millimeters. So quite a good amount of space there. Then it also has a detailed camera on the head itself that can give you close-ups when it comes to positioning things. And in the 3 weeks that I've been working with this, those cameras in combination with the LiDAR and the autofocus has made it a complete game changer. I did like the pinpointing mechanism of the S1. I really like the little metal needle that it would drop to get the depth. And I think that was such a cool system, and it leaps and bounds better than what I had on the Acrylic Falcon 2 Pro. But the P2 simplifies that even further, which is pretty cool. So before we get to the setup, I did want to just kind of put out the disclaimer that the P2, as well as accessories that will likely be featured in a future video, were provided free of charge from xTool for review purposes. They're not reviewing the content of this video, but I know that in some ways that can impact what you may perceive to be a legitimate review. I will also have links in the description below for you to make a purchase if you are interested in purchasing the P2. And if this video has helped kind of push you over the edge with that, I'd greatly appreciate that. It really goes a long way to help smaller creators like myself. Also, xTool has just recently released in pre-release the P2S. So the P2S is almost identical to the P2 here with some additional capabilities. So it's going to be able to engrave faster. It does have I believe, more powerful exhaust and a couple of other creature comforts with the unit itself. It does retail for a little bit more money than the P2. And I think that if you are going to be considering the P2 at this time, definitely take a look at the P2S, and I will have links to the brand new P2S in the description below. So without further ado, let's get to the setup of the xTool P2 55-watt CO2 laser. Okay, so we've got 7 boxes in front of us right now, and I think another couple are coming tomorrow. Those are accessories. Those will mostly be in a future video, but the main xTool P2 is in this box, which apparently weighs 130 pounds. So let's get this one opened up. Okay, here we go. We got a little bag and just the P2, which is going to have to come out of here, and I'm going to be moving my xTool S1 to another table and having a neighbor help lift this, because I imagine that this is over 100 pounds in itself. Then we'll continue this video taking a look at what's inside the P2, which I assume contains all the other accessories. Okay, so I have had a neighbor help me get the 100-pound P2 onto this table, and this is the same table where I had my xTool S1 before, and what's kind of funny is that the actual space that it takes up isn't that different. Now, the laser itself is significantly larger from a volume perspective, and it is 240 millimeters wider. However, with where I had the S1 air assist position on the side, this fits on this table quite well. The actual depth of this unit of the P2 compared to the S1 is very similar, and the height when compared to the S1 with the riser base is very similar, but where that's going to get totally different is because I do have the P2 riser base, which I do intend to install with this at some point down the road, and I am going to be building a custom table over in this corner of my shop as this does become a permanent fixture. So without further ado, let's take a look at the inside. nice hydraulics on there to lift that up. Remove that styrofoam and let's see what we have. Okay, so we do have the self-check guide, instruction manual, and I believe quick start guide. Now the xTool printed instructions are absolutely amazing, so that's something that if you are new to xTool, definitely expect kind of the best in class with that. Got some cardboard and some plywood, sample material. Got a power cord. We've got a screwdriver and some material holding pieces. USB-C to USB Type A. So the unit itself is USB-C, but is a Type A for connecting to your computer. You can also connect wirelessly or via Ethernet. We've got some spare screws. Got some awesome silica packets. Funnel, because what we have in here is a whole big jug of antifreeze. So that's one of the kind of funny things about this CO₂ laser is that we do have to put in a mixture of antifreeze and water depending on our climate. And we've got some instructions on there. We've got the exhaust hose as well as a clamp. Okay, so now in here, we actually have the slats already installed, which was a little bit of a cumbersome setup process with my Creality Falcon Pro. Now we do also have a couple pieces of acrylic under here, which I believe is kind of the final bit of the bits and pieces that are included with the P2. Okay, so taking a look in the quick start guide, so we've already done a good chunk of it, but there are some screws that have to be removed in order to get out the rest of the styrofoam. So I'm going to be doing all that off camera, but I did just want to show just how impressive this quick start guide is. I'll give you a tour in a few minutes, and then we will also fill it up with the glorious antifreeze. So now I know removing screws isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but I just want to point out this kind of detail that xTool has. So they've got these little stickers over the screws that you're to remove to complete setup. Got a whole bunch back there that need to be removed to remove the back piece in order to get the antifreeze in. Just this kind of attention to detail and these kind of stickers all over the place. Just a nice touch in making the unboxing experience of an expensive and somewhat intimidating tool quite pleasant. One quick thing I want to point out when you are removing the 6 screws at the back to access the CO₂ module and the antifreeze port is to take the screwdriver that you probably have in the Phillips configuration to release the screw down there and take that out and flip it around so that you have the hex heads, because these back screws are all hex. Okay, so I've already removed the 6 inside screws that are attached to this panel, and they're all very short screws on the back. There are 5 longer screws, one of which is left. That's in the middle of this grate. And for a few of them, they were kind of hard to pull out, so I did use a magnet to just help with that. And now we're ready to remove this panel, and the manual does show that you remove it not by pulling it out this way, but you pull it up. And I practiced this before just to see how much it would take, and kind of loosen it to get a grip underneath on one side. And then you kind of want to resist doing that just because this is a plastic piece and you are pulling it up. There, it sounds worse than it actually is. And you just have these little clips that go into these spots right here. So it is okay to kind of bend it up. I've had no issue doing that. And now the manual says to inspect the CO₂ cartridge, canister, tube, not sure exactly what you would call it, probably tube. Just looking for any sort of cracks. And I did do this a little bit off video as well, and I saw no issues. And what's interesting about the P2 versus the X1 is the X1 has kind of like these independent laser modules that are swappable that just kind of like attach to like the gantry inside the laser. Whereas here, this whole system generates the laser beam, and then there's a series of mirrors, and you can see the back one here, that then focus the laser beam onto the head itself. So a very, very different setup. This is very new to me. While I might not be a laser beginner, I'm very much a laser novice with my only experience being on diodes, but looks good. So now we're ready to fill the coolant. So it's gonna be a mix of antifreeze and distilled water that we'll put in there. So this is an interesting thing that I want to call out, and I've watched a few videos and also looked up online on forums. So the amount of antifreeze that you put into purified water depends on the annulus lowest temperature in your region. Now, in your region is different than like in your shop. So I've seen some people where it might get down to -40 in their region, but their laser's inside their house. It's going to be always above 0 Celsius. And they're filling it as if it is -40. That doesn't really make sense to me. And I don't know if there's like some atmospheric thing or something like that, but that still doesn't make sense to me. So what I'm going to be doing, and feel free to leave comments or leave a comment below if you think this is very much wrong. But in my area, we get kind of occasional like -30 temperatures, but usually not too far below -20. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be filling this to the -20 to -10 range. So that's just kind of a decision that I'm making right now, especially since most of the year it is well above 0 here in Southern Ontario. So 490 milliliters of antifreeze and 610 milliliters of water. And I'm probably just going to do, just for the sake of measurement accuracy, just kind of it with the device that I'll be using, I'm going to be using, measuring cup that is, not device. I'm going to be using 500 and 600. Okay, so to put this in, just loosen that cap. It did come with a funnel that we can put in right there. I've got 500 milliliters of antifreeze I'm going to be putting in right now. Still seems very strange to be putting liquid into a laser, but I suppose the science makes sense. And then I'm going to be topping that up with another 600 milliliters of water, and that's for the first pour. Then we cycle the unit and then put in another, I believe, 300 milliliters. Okay, so we have our 1100 milliliters of fluids in there. I'm going to tighten that up. And then, according to the manual, we need to fill it twice. So we've done the first pull or first fill. Connect the machine to power, turn the machine on, wait 30 seconds for water level to descend in the water tank, pour the required purified water in, then close the cap off the water tank, and just hope for no overflow. Okay, so now based on the videos that I've seen, there's gonna be a lot of kind of like rush of water, some gurgling, all that kind of stuff, so I'm prepared to not freak out about that. I'm plugged in, the safety mechanism is good. So now we turn it on and we count to 30. Okay, so we've got it starting. Let's see. Got some activity. Oh, see some water moving. There we go. Woo! Got some movement inside the laser. Okay, almost 30 seconds. We'll turn it off and put in that remaining 300 milliliters of water. Okay, and the last pour of around 300 milliliters of water. Well, I guess exactly 300 milliliters of water, and you can see into the reservoir just how much you have. You don't want to overflow that. There'd probably be room for another 100 milliliters, but I've measured very carefully according to their rules, so I'm not going to try to top it up or anything like that. Okay, and now that we've got water in the tube, we've got that on, we've got the machine kind of ready to go, we just need to put the cover back on, then we're going to connect to the computer and go through, I believe, the mirror setup. Okay, so we have the P2 ready to be turned on, and it is connected via USB to my computer. So it's going to go through a start cycle. You can see the little LCD screen show up there. Okay, and we can see on the readout, let's see if I can get this on camera, it's 22 degrees Celsius, so that is, I think, the coolant temperature. It is currently unlocked. I don't think that's a touch screen or anything. It'll lock automatically. And you can see the head in there. And now on the computer, what we can do is we can just open up a new project, and we should see my S1 over here. But if I go to device settings, I can see the P2. And yes, it differs from the project file, that's fine. New firmware, we'll update that. And in the software, firmware update succeeded, so that's great. And oh, we've already got a camera. So we already have the wide angle there. Let's just open it up. Just want to see if, okay. Just want to see if my hand would show up on that, but maybe it doesn't update automatically. That's all right. Oh, let's do this. Refresh background. My hand in the way. There. Oh, that looks horrible. All right, so we got the device settings here so we can see some details on this. 0 hours, exhaust after process. I'm going to change this to 15 seconds. That's something that I wanted to do earlier on. Optical path setup. So this is something that I am going to plan to do to get this fully set up, and I'm not going to include that in the video. I am just going to kind of go through the remainder of the setup without doing that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to just do a cut and an engrave. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to drop in my logo. And what was super cool when I put the material in here, and this is just 3mm basswood, is that the camera then, upon closing it, asks you to refresh it, which is pretty cool. We're going to put this logo down. We're going to do a pretty big one. Actually, let's just go quite big. But what we're going to do first, actually, is we're going to add an outline so that we can cut it and engrave it. We don't want to do inner, but we want to get rid of like any of those little bits. There, this is starting to look like what I want. 3mm basswood. We want the outer part to be cut. We want this part to be engrave. Let's make this kind of as big as we can on here. Again, it's kind of cool seeing the image of this. So let's do this. I'm going to assume it's just like my other xTool. Go to process. I'm going to turn on the smoke purifier. It's going to take 20 minutes, so I'm not going to be showing this whole thing on video. Okay, we're going to click start. Then over on the laser, we can press the button. Woo. There it goes. It's much louder than the S1. You can see over on the little LCD screen, so we can see the temperature of the coolant. We can see that we're connected to USB and that the door is locked. And it's doing the engrave. No surprises from what I can see, other than it being a lot louder than I expected. Okay, so it's just about done the engrave. And yes, it is a lot louder than the S1, but not unreasonable. Here we go. There we go. There's the smoke. Wow, that is so much faster than the S1 cuts the same thickness of material. This is very cool to see. Lots of smoke. No smell in the shop. I'm not venting the smoke purifier made by xTool out to anywhere, so it's just venting into the shop, but I don't smell anything. There we go. Okay. So smoke purifier is still going. There will be some residual smoke that comes up from this. There we go. Oh, wow. You know what? The amount of burning on the side is so much more minimal compared to the S1. So the S1, it's usually like pretty close to black on the outside every time. But yeah, this is nothing that I couldn't have done with the xTool S1 20-watt laser that I have. But the speed of the cutting and the cleanness of the cutting is so much more impressive. So yeah, this is first cut and first engrave with the P2. Okay, so now for this next test, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing as this, but I'm going to be doing it on clear acrylic, which is something that you cannot cut with a diode laser. So I'm really excited to give this a try. This is my first time doing anything with clear acrylic. In fact, this is my second time using this laser altogether. So I'm going to be doing the same design. Let's close this and I'll get xTool XCS all set up. Okay, ready to start. We're gonna press the button. Ah, it's doing it. That's so cool to see. And I'm just using the stock settings straight from XCS. So we're gonna let this run for, oh gosh, 35 minutes. So I'll check back at the end. Okay, so the engrave is just about done, and we're gonna be switching to the cut on the acrylic, which according to the countdown, it's gonna be pretty quick. Wow. Just like the basswood, I'm still just impressed at the cutting speed of this. Okay, let's open it up and take a look. Oh, just came out perfectly. There we go, I'm just gonna go clean this up. All right, there we go. So ignore the fingerprints and all that kind of stuff behind it, but this turned out absolutely perfectly. Again, this is clear acrylic on a CO₂ laser, which just isn't possible on a diode laser. So absolutely thrilled that I'm gonna be able to do this with the P2. All right, so now I do just wanna show you just kind of some of the materials that I have been playing around with. And here we have kind of what was already featured in the video, but that 3mm basswood plywood. It's something that the xTool S1 20-watt laser, a 10-watt laser would be able to cut extremely well. But what I want to highlight with this one is just how clean the cut is from the 55-watt laser. It's able to go so much faster, which prevents a lot of the burning on the edge. So even like the residual smell of the workpiece after is just so much less. And just showing you the acrylic in a little bit more detail. So there's just like this nice texture on there. Just really, really happy about that. And I do want to get some thicker acrylic to test kind of what I can do beyond this. I kind of want to test the 20mm thick acrylic, but I know that might be pushing the limits of the P2. And just a few other things that I've been able to do on the S1. So like these stone coasters, the quality of the result from the P2 is just as good as I was getting from the S1. So not really any of an upgrade there. I did put a little bit of lacquer finish on that one. The other thing that I want to note is 1/4 inch. So this is 1/4 inch walnut plywood, and really happy with how that cut as well. So the 20-watt laser, the diode, the S1, could cut this kind of material, but there'd be much more burning on the side. It would still cut it really cleanly, and I would generally be happy with the results, but the 55-watt CO₂ does a much better job. Now, what I would say is that engraving I did a darker engrave on this, so it was cutting through the veneer, so don't judge the quality there too much. It's mostly about the thickness on that one. Now, cardboard. Trying to engrave on cardboard is just silly because there are kind of just like always some, not chemicals, but other kind of material or plastics and that sort of thing on the cardboard itself. So it does result in kind of like a horrible engrave, but the cutting was awesome. So I know a lot of people do that for paper craft and that sort of thing. Now we did get into some thicker MDF. Let's just check the thickness on this. So this is 10mm thick MDF, and it did cut it. So I think that's something that I did want to highlight. So it did take, I think it took 2 passes to cut this. So there is kind of like significant burning on the side because you are going at a pretty slow speed. Something I want to play around with a little more from a settings perspective, just to see if I can get it to be a little cleaner on the edge. But nice that you can cut 10mm MDF. And then we also here have, I believe that this is, 10mm, or basically just under 1/2 inch solid walnut. So this is just straight up solid walnut cut from this piece right here, so not plywood. And I am really happy with the result here. I did do, I think it did 2 passes on this one, but I think that I can dial it in to probably get through most solid woods in 1 pass, just kind of according to some of the material that I've been reading on the P2. So really quite happy with that. And the engrave on this, just compared to the veneered plywood, is just so nice. I am just absolutely thrilled with this. So I think as far as kind of what I'm going to be able to do, not just from an engrave, because like again, the S1 would have been able to do a nice engrave on this, but it is just like really nice and nice to be able to cut it out with some pretty good accuracy, and you can just use a sander to get rid of some of the black on the side. Now, two things that I really want to highlight as just being awesome with this. So here we have a glass coaster, so it is done on the back, and you just kind of mirror the image that you want to do. And I was able to do this on the S1 using special tempera paint on the back and get a very similar result. So while being able to etch glass and do this natively on the P2 is super convenient and something that I will be doing more often than you would think. I think that etching glass panels for cabinets and that sort of thing, like smaller jewelry cabinets, is something that I'll be doing a lot to kind of frost them. So it's gonna be nice to kind of be able to skip that paint step, which can also result in some inconsistencies. Just if you don't have the paint perfectly applied everywhere, the diode laser wasn't yielding the best results. But for something like this, the S1 was okay with the tempera paint, but this is gonna be a game changer. And the final thing I wanna highlight, just with this being a more powerful laser, is like how precise can it get? So I think that a lot of people have done this example online. So here's the toothpick. See if it's focusing. So it says Mason on there, engraved really easily. So I just want to show kind of just a variety of these materials. In kind of a follow-up in a few months, I will be kind of showing a lot of the other materials that I've been working with. So I have made quite a few things out of these materials, things for my daughter. She loves kind of some licensed stuff, so I didn't want to show that on video. But I did want to show you kind of some of the capabilities here with these materials. So now what do I like and dislike about the P2? So I think first and foremost, the speed of cutting of this just makes the world of difference. I think for me, not being a production shop, but being kind of woodworker, hobbyist, crafter, that kind of thing, the speed of cutting is absolutely amazing on this versus the S1 and the Acrylic Falcon 2 Pro. So I think that that's something that's really cool about this. Not only is it cutting faster, but cutting faster is going to save time as well as give you a cleaner cut with less burning. So I think that that's something that I really see as my primary like for this. And the main reason why I think that for kind of a woodworker, for a hobbyist that wants to like kind of dip into that small business where cutting is going to be one of the primary focuses, the P2 is the way to go. Now, if you're looking to engrave, I think the S1 becomes kind of like a very valid option when it comes to any small business. But if your primary focus is cutting, the P2 is definitely the way to go. Second, kind of biggest like about this is the ease of setup. Now, it may be a little more involved than the S1, which gets you up and running absurdly quickly. But even though you have to fill the tank on the P2, you have to do a couple of other things. It may be, like if I wasn't filming it, you could maybe get up and running about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. So that is maybe double, triple the time of the S1, but still a fraction of the time that it took me with the Acrylic Falcon 2 Pro diode laser. And I'm not quite sure how a lot of the other CO2 lasers on the market are from a setup perspective. Now, big part of the setup as well is the xTool XCS software. So the xTool Creative Space is absolutely amazing. It's kind of an extension of their setup guides. So it's so tightly integrated with their lasers that it makes it really easy to use. Other thing that I was absolutely kind of blown away with this was the dual camera system. And I know those of you that have experience with laser, like, yeah, of course, cameras are awesome. But the camera on the Acrylic Falcon 2 Pro was okay at giving you kind of rough guidance as to where to put something, but it wasn't overly precise. And the S1 with the pinpointing system, I got used to that and absolutely loved it. So I didn't feel the need to have a camera. But the wide angle on this and then being able to kind of get the detail from the camera on the head just kind of made a world of difference, and something that I thought was kind of a nice to have, and now I'm like, oh no, like you need to have this on some of these higher tier lasers. The autofocus was also amazing, so whether you're doing the aim measure or the quick measure, it's just something that in the software, even if you're just setting the material thickness and you're not even doing any of those measures, you don't even have to think about it. So I think if I'm selecting material that is within the quick set material in the XCS software, you don't even have to do a measure, and you might be off by a couple millimeters, but it's going to be fine in the end. So I think that those tools, when I did have to get into like the custom thickness of the MDF or walnut, that sort of thing, worked really, really well, and something that I take for granted because I did like the little needle drop on the S1. Kind of other like that just kind of a big thing about this is it's a big unit and everything is contained, which is awesome. It's also really sturdy. So like the build quality is quite good, kind of a mix of glass, metal, nice plastics. And when it's engraving at a really fast speed, so like at that 600 millimeters per second, the whole thing isn't vibrating very much. There might be a very slight vibration of the unit, but very, very minimal. Whereas the S1, when it gets going with that heavy laser head, the whole unit is just going back and forth. And I don't know what kind of like compensation they've built into the software or kind of the adjustments of the laser, because it wasn't impacting the quality of the cutter or the engrave on the S1, but the P2 is just so much sturdier. And I think that that's something that is really kind of handy with how big and heavy this is, being over 100 pounds. As far as the dislikes, so I think that one is just kind of the nature of CO2 lasers in general, and that is that there are some material limitations. So engraving metal kind of properly like I can with the IR laser on the S1 is something that you can't do on the P2. And I think that's the main reason why I am going to be keeping the S1 and moving it downstairs with the 2-watt IR laser basically permanently installed in it, so I can do metal engraving with that. So that, that's not a reflection on the P2, it's more of CO2 lasers in general, and probably also why xTool does sell a bundle with the P2 that also includes the fiber laser that they have, so the F1 fiber laser. So then that doesn't just engrave metal, it can like basically like carve through metal, which is pretty cool. Other kind of dislike, and this comes back to kind of like the big and sturdy and contained, is it's big. So the unit here, this is no riser base. And while I have it on this kind of temporary cart here, I'm not going to be able to fit it in my shop with the riser base on this mobile cart. And the other part with it kind of being big is that the maintenance spot at the back, so if you have to deal with liquids, you have to be able to reach around. So that makes it so that anything that I build for over here should be on casters, but then I'm not going to be able to level it because my floor is not perfectly level. So I don't know what to do. So leave a comment in the description below if you have a really good idea of what I can build, because my original plan was just kind of build like a really nice table with some good storage underneath, not on casters, so I could get it perfectly level. Because when it comes to using things like rotary tools and that kind of stuff, that's really handy. But it also is going to make maintenance really hard because this thing's going to be really heavy to move. It's also going to make using the conveyor attachment, which I do have this, very difficult to use because I'd have to have a neighbor come over, help me lift this onto my larger MFT table, and which would work great with the conveyor, but I can't leave it set up there all the time. So I'm kind of weighing my options. Do I build a cart so that then I can just kind of like fold something up and attach the conveyor? Or do I just build something that is perfectly level over there? And then the few times a year where I do have to physically move it and have somebody help me, I can do so. So I think that that's kind of the combination of being big and heavy and maintenance at the back. And yeah, I think as far as like dislikes, that's kind of it. The learning curve it's just as easy as the S1. So I'm using the XCS software, not using Lightburn. So this is not kind of an attestment to Lightburn at all. I know that is kind of like industry standard for a lot of people that do use lasers. But using the XCS software, I'm able to load material. If they don't have the exact material that I'm working with, I can usually find a pretty good proxy. So I don't really have to worry about settings or doing like those kind of the material samples where it will show kind of different levels and that kind of thing. And I think that as I use this more over the next few months and get into more hardwood work on this, I probably will do some of those. But so far, it's just been so easy to use. And I think that that's really kind of what makes this kind of that initial review of this unit. And I do want to come back in a few months and do a more detailed video. So now let's get to kind of everybody's favorite topic, pricing. And the P2 is definitely more expensive than the S1. So let's get into some of the details here. And I've got some notes that I'd like to reference because I have looked at both the P2 as well as the P2S, which I think should be probably your primary consideration if you are looking at the P2, and then the S1. So I think that we're kind of talking two totally different things. And if you're interested in me doing a more detailed comparison between the two lasers, like literally beside each other on a table, let me know. And that's something that I wouldn't mind doing, especially before Black Friday, to support any sort of buying decisions. But these prices are at the time of filming. So one other thing that I would like to say is that xTool does often have sales that pop up, so you will see pricing fluctuate from time to time. There's also tremendous value if you're buying the bundles that have accessories. So I really like the smoke purifier. I really like the rotary tool. The conveyor feeder, something that xTool did send me. It's not something I'm going to use very often. And the riser base, I think, is another really important one. So definitely take a look at the bundles because there are significant savings on those accessories versus buying them separately after the fact. So the P2 standalone, and it is available in both gray and white. This is the gray one. So in US dollars, the kind of Suggested retail price is $5,000, and but at the time of filming, it is currently on sale for $36.99, and in Canada, it is currently on sale for $49.79, so just under $5,000 Canadian for the standalone. Now there are bundles that are more expensive that have those accessories. The P2 standalone right now in the US is an additional $600 over the P2, so at $42.99, and in Canada, it's an additional like $700-ish. At $56.29. So that is for the P2S standalone, not bundle, but there are bundles available. And let's compare this to the S1. So the S1 20 watt basic, which is what I had, is currently selling for $13.49 US or $18.79 Canadian. So you're dealing with like 2.5 times the price for the P2. So also with the S1, there's the 40 watt basic, so it's going to have more cutting power than the one that I have. It's $16.99 US or $22.99 US. And I think that if you are considering the S1 and especially the bundles, definitely make sure, I would highly recommend getting even though I have the 20 watt plus the 2 watt IR, I would recommend getting the 40 watt plus the 2 watt IR. The IR is absolutely amazing when it comes to engraving metal. So I think that it's definitely worth having. And again, buying it as the bundle, you're paying much less for those additional accessories. So yeah, is the P2 worth 2.5 times the price of the S1? So I think it depends on the use case. For me, well, first of all, these were both provided from xTool for review purposes. So my needs kind of are my situation is different. But if you are a woodworking shop, you're looking to cut thicker material, or you're looking to cut kind of just like wood in general, I think that the P2 is absolutely worth it because you're going to be able to cut significantly faster. If you are a production shop and not looking quite at the industrial ones, you want to get into laser cutting and laser engraving and your company's paying for it, that sort of thing, well, that really kind of softens the blow from a price perspective on the P2. And I think that compared to some of the other like $10,000 plus machines, you're getting a lot of capability out of this unit. Similarly, if you're making things to sell on Etsy and you're making a lot of the same thing, I think that the P2 is a really good option because you're going to be able to produce things that much faster and with much more kind of flexibility. So I think that's where the P2 really shines. I think the S1 really shines. If you're new to lasers in general, I think the S1 provides tremendous value, especially if you're buying one of those bundles. It holds its value pretty well in the resale market. So if you do decide to upgrade later on, the S1 is something that can easily be resold. The S1 is also great for just kind of like the hobbyist that wants to make some things here and there. Maybe you have a small business and you're doing one-off things, like doing custom work for people. I think the S1 can really excel there from a cost perspective because you aren't going to be batching through things, so speed isn't necessarily as critical. So I think that these two lasers are kind of like really good from a consideration standpoint. So I'll put links to both the, well, I guess all three. The P2 in front of me right now, the P2S, so the new kind of version of this, so they are going to be selling both at the same time, as well as the S1. And yeah, I think that kind of does it for this video. So let me know in the comments below what you think. I know I've had a decent bit of laser video or laser content over the last couple months, and so I will be trickling in some other stuff here and there, but there are going to be a couple more laser videos this year. And yeah, thanks for watching. And again, leave a comment below what you think, and I'll see you in another video soon. Thanks for watching.